Good morning, class. It's good to have you in this engineering economic course. However, due to pandemic, I know that you haven't arrived Taiwan. So for a few weeks, we are going to do the lecture this way. So what I intend to do is to record my lecture with a shorter period of time. For each hour of the class lecture, I will probably record it in 20 minutes or so, and further divide it into 2 or sometimes 3 different sections, so that you can watch each integral section repeatedly. And for each sections, it will be around 8 minutes. Sometimes it could be more than 10 minutes, 11 or 12 minutes. But in short, it's going to be a shorter recording so that you can watch it repeatedly. In this introductory chapter, we are going to cover a few topics. I think it's mainly about the background on this particular subject. Also, there are some relevant tools that we would like to introduce in the beginning. These are just very basic introduction. Most of them are not really the core of the engineering economics. For one, we are going to talk about the background and what is engineering economics, and then we'll talk about some cases so that you can have some feeling of what kind of problems or what kind of issues that we're going to address. Then we'll talk about something called financial statements, which should be already covered by your accounting course, but we are going to indicate the framework, and so that you know that all these money related issues are relevant. And we are also going to talk about ratios. Ratio is a simplification of a lot of complex situations. Using ratio help us to capture some essence of the conditions. However, it also has its limitation and risk. So we are going to go through them one by one. What is in engineering economics? You see the word engineering, you also see the word economics. They seem to be something quite different, but you can imagine that engineering is an adjective to describe economics. It's about engineering. It's engineering related economics. So mainly using economics to solve certain engineering problem, particularly on the decision problem related to or requiring engineering efforts. We can look at this from that particular perspective. That is, we want to understand economic outcome for different alternatives that we are provided. We want to make a decision so that we can gain the optimal economic benefit. On the other hand, before using engineering economics tool in different problems, basically engineering economics will be just a set or collection of different kind of mathematical tools or techniques that help us to make economic comparison. Why is engineering economics important, particularly for engineers? I guess for all of us living in the world, we are facing different kind of decisions. A lot of decisions are related to economics. For example, I think you are coming to Taiwan, or any of you coming to university to study. In fact, if you want to analyze whether or not getting a bachelor's degree will be economically or financially justifiable, meaning that during this period of time, you will not work, you will not make money. However, after you graduate, maybe your prospect will be better, maybe your starting salary will be better. So in order to understand which one is more financially beneficial to different people under different kind of situation, we need to have a tool to help us gathering the information and making reasonable or fair comparison so that we can make our decision. Of course, not all the decision can be made just based on financial situation. However, financial situation does provide an aspect and also a more objective way of comparing different alternatives. So that's something that you are facing right now. Maybe after you graduate from the college, after you start to work, then you wanted to buy a house or a car, then you have different options, financial arrangement. Which one will be the most beneficial to you? Maybe you bought a car, a house, you pay everything out immediately, then you don't have to pay interest. However, there's also other consideration, financial consideration that you can take into account. For example, when you are not paying off everything, you have money which you can do investment on other opportunities. So although you are paying interest to a mortgage company, but you do have the money to make potentially better investment so that your return is higher than the interest you pay, then maybe you don't want to pay off everything. So there's a lot of such kind of decisions which are quite different in terms of financial arrangement. Whether or not one is better than the other require our ability to build up the model and set up the foundation, a fair foundation, so that two alternatives or multiple alternatives can be compared fairly and effectively. If you work for a company, of course, in companies, usually we said enterprises or companies, the reason that the single most important target that they have is they need to be profitable. So on the one hand, they need to try to come up with their product, solutions, services, and on the other hand, they want to lower their cost. So they need to find ways to produce the product more effectively while controlling the cost. So you can imagine that choosing a product will be an issue, whether or not making this product will generate significant profit for the company. That's something need to be decided. At the same time, there are different ways of producing the same product. Whether or not you want to use a certain technology, usually the answer is not that clear. It depends, and in the real world, it happens all the time. You have one good, you don't have other good. So you have to take into account of maybe initial investment, one is higher, the other is lower. But in the future, the higher investment one will have lower variable costs for making the product. So you need to look at the amount of product that you want to make and how long you are going to make the product, so that you can have the overall picture of all the financial situation and bring them to the same standing point and compare them and see which one provide better financial opportunity. So for companies, enterprises, such kind of decision problems are quite abundant. The process of making such kind of decision, in fact, involve a few steps. It's called rational decision making process. First of all, you need to be aware that there's a problem. If you are not aware that there's a problem, then there's nothing to be solved. And in the real world, sometimes you forgot that you have an option and there's a way to solve a problem. And whether or not you want to solve the problem, or whether or not you want to use one out of a few alternatives to solve the problem, that is the beginning of the decision-making process. There is a problem. Then you have to define the goal or the objective. The goal meaning that, are you solving the problem for you or for the other party? Okay. When the parties are different, when the objectives are different, you will formulate the problem differently, and your approach of tackling the problem will be different. Most importantly, your decision will be different. Right? To you, it's more advantageous, which will maybe just the opposite for the other party. So you need to think of the problem from the perspective of the owner. Then you need to collect all the relevant information, and you want to decide what kind of alternative that you have. Under this alternative, there should be quite a few criteria that you need to consider to help you gathering the information so that you can make decision accordingly. And in the end, you will select the best alternative. Again, based on the criteria that you have. And also a very important reminder is it should be based on differences. Sometimes you look at an alternative and say, it's quite good, right? It looks quite good. But if you compare this alternative to the other alternative, this other alternative performs better in every criteria. So although the first one you saw, you feel that it's good, but if you consider the difference, you will find that the second one will be better. So this is something that we will see later in different decision processes. And for a car, you can imagine that it is something useful, and it is a decision problem. Well, basically, maybe you take public transportation to the school all the time, and you just didn't realize that there's also an option to get a car. So you need to understand that there's this needs of getting a car. So getting a car becomes a decision problem. So what do you want the car for, and what is the most important objective that you have? Chances are mechanical safety could be one of the most important issues. And then we'll get all these relevant technical information about different cars, and also their relevant financial information. And with those information, then we identify which cars that we can afford, and some of them are of similar safety level. So after we get all of them, then we evaluate them based on the criteria that we set up. Maybe we are still concerned about how the payment is. Maybe we are concerned about the kind of driving conditions that we have. Which car provides more benefit in these two or others criteria. So we gather all of them, and in the end we'll make our decision. So it's just a procedure, seemingly simple, but along the way, in addition to many other criteria, for sure there's one particular criterion, which is financial related criterion. We want to make sure that we want to compare two or multiple alternatives, their financial arrangement and their feasibility.